Hi, welcome to Bits and Pieces Quilting. My name's Michelle. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I have a video for you of my interview with Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I just love the name of Brenda's channel, Conquering Mount Scrapmore. It makes me smile every time I hear it. Brenda did a shout out for my channel a few weeks ago, and I was so thrilled to have that opportunity to connect with Brenda and the community that she's built through her YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Thanks very much for watching.
Hello and welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I have Michelle from Australia here, another YouTuber, and she's going to introduce her channel. Come on,
Hi,
Michelle.
Brenda. I'm Michelle, and I'm from Bits and Pieces Quilting. And
Oh,
yes, here
yeah.
in Australia, bright and early on a Sunday morning.
Bits and pieces. Yeah, I know. I'm here like on a Saturday afternoon, which
Yep,
to me
yep.
sounds like I'm Saturday, you're Sunday.
Coming
Okay,
to you
but
from the future. I'll send you the lottery numbers after this.
that's about it. Yeah, I know. Is that I always messes me up when I'm talking to people from New Zealand or Australia. Is what, because you're crossing that international time zone, and it's like just okay. I am terrible with time zones.
Yep, yep. And it's crazy when you fly in that direction because you often land where you're going before you left home. It's very brain bending. It's very brain bending.
It's our kind of like time travel thing,
Yep.
right? Yeah. What was that movie? There was a guy that came from another planet and they was jumping back and forth across the state line because one state had one time zone and the other state had a different time zone, and it's like time travel. Come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like that kind of thing. Oh, Michelle, I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I understand your employer got you to move to Australia.
Yes.
And that to me would be so exciting. What is it like being a Canadian in Australia?
It's lovely. Australia is a lovely place. We live in Canberra, which is the capital, and lots of people have this misconception that Australia is hot all the time. And let me tell you, winter in Canberra is real. We don't get
Yeah.
snow the way that you do in Canada, but it gets really cold here. And when I complain about the cold, people always look at me like I'm crazy. Like, you're Canadian. This should be nothing for you. But winter is real. Um,
And it's
I think
cold and damp.
Australia's, sorry,
It's probably cold and damp,
it
right?
depends if we're in a dry season or not, because sometimes it
Yeah.
can just be a really dry, biting cold as well.
Yeah.
Almost the way that if you've ever been to Las Vegas on a cold night, the way that it's really hot during the day and then the sun disappears and the heat just disappears and it's cold.
Well, there's what penguins in Tasmania, or
The
the
little fairy
southern part,
penguins right
the
along. Yeah,
southern
yeah,
part of Australia. There's penguins there. They just kind of float along from
yeah.
Antarctic.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That cold Antarctic Ocean. And when those winds blow from down there, it can really chill the place down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are absolutely fascinated by the birds here. The birds are these incredibly exotic, beautiful, beautiful birds. It never gets old. I would say, though, that of all the countries I've visited and the few that I've lived in, I would say that Australians and Canadians are probably the closest in terms of
Oh,
similarities. Same sort of worldview, same parliamentary system, same similar legal system.
yeah.
There's a lot that's really familiar that just has a cool accent.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. My granddaughter introduced me to the cartoon Bluey, and
Bluey's
she
big.
just loves it. And I mean, when I actually got down and sat down with her last night to watch it, I was laughing too. It's a cute cartoon for kids and adults, right? So,
It's really popular here. It's a major cultural export, I think. Yeah.
wow, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the fabric prices like in Australia? Because everybody here in Canada and North America, they're all, oh my God, the price of cotton is outrageous. And it's like, no, not compared to other countries.
Yeah, quilting
yeah,
can be a bit of an expensive hobby here. I think
yes,
very similar to Canada and the US, where you've got you've got the really amazing quilt stores with the very best of the best. And then you have your chain fabric store. And
yes.
the best of the best is incredible quality. It's the same. You can get your Tula Pinks and your Riley Blakes and your free, you can get all of that kind of stuff at the dedicated quilting stores. And
Right.
it's a lot. You're looking at anywhere from about 28 to $35 a meter,
Ooh,
which is
okay, yeah,
a lot. Um, but at your chain fabric store that has a sale on something every week, if you wait long
yeah.
enough, everything goes on sale. And I was there just yesterday and they had all quilting cottons at 40 or 50% off. And
Oh,
so when it's normally 25 to $27 and you buy it at 40 to 50% off, it's not bad.
yeah, that's pretty good.
And then you check the sale bin and if you keep your eyes open, you can make it vaguely affordable, but I
Yeah.
don't buy a lot of designer fabric these days, I have to say. As much as I
I
love
go
it.
I go rummaging through the remnants,
Yep,
This one I'm keeping, this one's garbage. This, oh yes, no, yes,
yep,
no.
yep. Sale bins are your friend for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I like almost there's no head anymore. All there is arms pitching at stuff one way or the other. Yeah, I know.
Yep. And I've gotten to the point where I shop with my hands too. I'm looking for quality,
Yes.
and if it feels like it's good quality, if you've ever listened or read Bonnie Hunter's podcasts or blogs, she has often said that if it's still ugly, you just haven't cut it small enough. So I sometimes, if it feels like it's great quality, I'll often hear Bonnie Hunter in my head saying, "Oh, if you cut it small enough, it might not be so bad."
Yeah, no, and it's well, I have friends that go out to garage sales and all over and buy me bags of scrap cotton or grandma's stash that's left. They'll go to a grab how much, and it's like, and they'll bring boxes and bags. Oh my god.
It's a scrap
um,
quilter's dream, Brenda. I
I
may have to
know
come and raid your
yeah, and it's
baskets one day.
and you might as well take it and use it and make some
Yeah,
beautiful quilts for charity. I mean, why
yeah.
not?
Make it into something for someone.
Otherwise it's going to end up in a landfill somewhere, and
Yeah.
not. One of the ladies, Olga from Russia, was talking about make 100 things out of. It's a project now that, and I understand it's not just Europe;
Okay.
it's all over. And it's make 100 things of all the stuff you have, and you're easily. I could make 100 quilts, no problem. And of course, you have to post them online. Make 100 things. Yeah, okay.
How long have you got?
Yeah, how long have you got? Because I probably wouldn't have to go buy anything for years. Yeah, but it's interesting how we're looking at the prices of fabric, and because there's Americans I'm talking to, like, in the rooms, like on our Facebook group room,
Mhm.
and they're, everything is going up. Well, yeah, that's normal inflation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, the pandemic caused transportation issues, so yeah, of course now everything is going to go up,
yeah,
right? Everything will settle down or stay, it'll level off, but I mean, at some point, yeah, it had to go up, right? But
yeah. Cost of living is a huge topic of conversation here in Australia. Rental or cost of housing is
yes,
probably double what I'm used to from our neighborhood in Ottawa in Canada. It's probably double. Fuel prices, they call it the island tax because Australia is pretty isolated out here in the South Pacific. And it costs money to bring things here, and that
yeah.
price is passed on to consumers. So lots and lots of things are much, much more expensive.
And you have a pretty big desert area too. People forget that there's a big part of Australia that's not arable land, right? So
Absolutely.
it's not like you
You
can
take
grow
the
your own food.
exactly, you take the country and you put the whole country on top of the United States and it's about the same size.
Yeah,
And Australia only has about 25 million people, which is fewer than the people that live in New York City. It's a very, very small population, and the vast majority live within a very short distance around the east, southern, and slightly west coasts. It's a very focused population and then a lot of nothing through the center.
Yeah, and those Aboriginal, are they Aboriginal lands or they're just desert?
Some of it is indigenous lands for sure. Indigenous peoples have been in Australia for 65,000 years. It's one of the longest settled places in the world, and it has been explored by people. And then, people make their living where they're able to make a living.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, you can't be living in the middle of a desert, because you have issues with water and everything else.
Everything. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it must be an interesting experience. It really must.
It is. It has been a great adventure. We feel really privileged.
Yeah, we had friends that had went, oh, years, probably like, well, probably 40 years ago. They went just to work down there for, I think it was New Zealand for 2 years, and they went and they were like, oh wow. It was just mind bending. They was like, no, you guys have no concept of what's going on. No, you live in a bubble.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said though, I find it so similar to Canada in so many ways. I live in the capital city. I go to work every day. I'm not doing tourist things every day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it feels very similar to Canada in many ways. The wildlife is totally different. The flora and fauna, all of that is completely different, of course, but at its core, it's not that different from Canada.
Yeah, well, and too, it's more accepting of other because there's so many different cultures that are in Australia now too, right? And
Absolutely.
we
Yep.
we here in Canada, we have so many different cultures here. Everybody we try our best to get along
Yep.
because,
Yep.
like,
Exactly.
well, yeah, it's pretty cold long winter if you're not getting along.
Yep.
So, Michelle, how long have you been quilting? Like, when was your first quilt? At what age did you start
Yeah,
quilting?
I was probably a teenager.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm 50 years old now, so probably about 40 years. Well,
Oh,
no, maybe
wow.
maybe 30 years, 35 years, let's say.
Okay.
I probably made my first quilt when I was about 16 or 17 with my mom's help. Um, but I grew up in southern Ontario, just south of Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo, which, if you know that area at all, it's Mennonite country. And we lived
Yeah.
in a very small town outside of Kitchener-Waterloo. So my mom knew a lot of Mennonite ladies. So I have these memories of a whole cloth quilt stretched out in the big old farmhouse on 2x4s with C clamps, holding it together on these homemade stands, and my brother and I playing underneath, while my mom and the Mennonite ladies sat around the edges working on the hand stitching, and clear memories of that. So one of my first quilts ever was a whole cloth double bed quilt for my bed. I
Oh,
picked
wow.
a fabric I loved and a really neutral plain. It was a just a off white with a design drawn on it, and then, yeah, hand stitched it. So that's, I don't do a whole lot of hand stitching anymore, but I picked up sewing probably late teens, early 20s, and kind of haven't looked back.
Yeah, I know. It's just I was taught by my grandmothers and my mother, and I I don't know what I Barbie was a clothes horse for me. Because I mean, you get the scraps, and every once in a
Yeah.
while they take them. Just, oh God, just take them, get out of here. And you'd play in those scraps as a kid, and you'd either make little blankets for your dolls or Barbie clothes or something. Yeah, it was always. And they thought at first I would pick myself with a needle and I'd be gone. They'd never see me in the sewing room again. Wow, I bled all over that first little quilt I made. I
I
just,
had
yeah,
this I had this vision that I was going to be a great fashion designer and I'd make all my clothes and they'd be so stylish. And then I very quickly realized that making clothes isn't that hard. Making clothes really well that fit really well, totally beyond my skill set. I just,
yeah.
other than an A-line skirt, I just couldn't make things that fit the way I wanted them to. And
I
so
think
I
too.
kind of went straight to sewing and thought, I can sew a straight line. That I can do. And haven't looked back from there.
Yeah, I sewed clothes and clothes for my kids and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. I think our
Different skill
mothers
set.
and our grandmothers understood sewing quite a bit differently than
Oh
we
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And when you look back at some of those Victorian books or the books from the turn of the last century, yeah, they were getting kids to mend their own clothes. They weren't, how to teach your child how to mend their clothes.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't mom's job to mend their clothes. You broke it, you ripped it, it's your problem.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, so
The
they
lost
understood
art.
it differently. Yeah. So it was kind of okay. Alrighty then. So what kind of things spark your quilting adventure? Like, is it the fabric? Is it the thread? Design? Like, what
Yeah,
sparks your creativity?
definitely the fabric, but I love scrappy quilts. They're my favorite.
Yeah,
I love that interplay of color and the coziness of it all. And I think too, in my heart, I get it probably from my dad more than anybody, but maybe from my mom too. I tend not to make decorative things, if that makes any sense. I don't make something that can then just sit on the shelf and collect dust. And I think that's why I love quilts, because they're useful.
yeah,
So it's creative and it's making something, but it's also purposeful. And that, I love that. And then that frugality, I think, translates into the passion for scrappy quilts. I don't want to waste a single piece. It's got to be good for something. It'll go together into something. And the dynamism of a scrappy quilt just appeals to me like nothing else.
yeah. I mean, I like stuff like this quilt here behind me. Most of that came out of my crumb bin because my crumbs are hand sized, like
Yep,
that.
yep, yep.
And you can pick pieces out of your crumb bin just and make something like that out of it. It's my favorite thing to do with it, but it's like,
I think there's a spectrum though. There's a spectrum from the fully planned, I bought one line of fabric and just used those fabrics and I made this perfectly coordinated quilt, all the way down to complete and total chaos. And I
yes,
think the one behind you falls closer to the scrappy end of the spectrum, but there's some planning there. You've got a common background, you've got lots
yeah,
of bright colors. You don't have any like really muddy colors in it from what I can see from here. That looks like it's brights and black background, so it's planned and organized. It's not the full chaos of a scrap, but it's not a planned.
actually, this one is well, it's brights. Yeah, there's some brights in there, but the mediums.
There you go.
Mediums. People
Yeah.
buy those stacks of fat quarters and there's darks and lights and they use them up right away. And then the mediums go into
Yeah.
their stash and it's like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
There's not enough contrast between
Contrast.
anything
Yeah.
to make anything, right? So people don't understand, hey, you gotta get your mediums out of your stash somehow,
Yeah.
right?
That's the secret to a scrappy quilt for me, is to have some kind of a plan, whether it's a unifying background color, whether
Yeah,
it's a theme, whether that's only brights or non-brights or what, something that will bring
yeah.
it together.
Yeah, like there's that quilt is behind you. That's what thread painting, is it? The one that's on the wall?
Oh, this is cross stitch.
Oh, is it? Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's gorgeous too. Yeah.
yeah. It's on linen. I probably bought it in the Netherlands in the early 2000s and I finished it about a year ago. This is the 15-year UFO and I'm thrilled that it's finished.
Looks good, looks good.
This was a
Okay.
COVID finish, actually. It was a COVID finish. I thought I'm not going anywhere. I might as well get this back out and finish it.
Yeah, that was one of the COVID, the I think the biggest impact on the pandemic for me was I was able to sit in here for hours and hours and hours and just sew my stash.
Nice. Nice.
That was 3 years of not running around, going out for lunch and doing that because I'm retired,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, it's just going out and having fun and doing this and doing that. And it's just like, okay. But the biggest impact on my quilting from the pandemic was I was able to sit and sew
Amazing. Yeah.
and write down ideas and write down, you know, okay, go through my big box of shorthand craziness that I write out my stuff, my ideas on. Okay, what does this look like as a block?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not too bad. Okay. That kind of, going through years of paper shuffling nonsense, and it was like, okay. So what was the biggest impact on the pandemic on your quilting? I mean, did you focus on UFOs? Did you?
Yeah, I've always been a finisher, so I don't really have a lot of UFOs. The cross stitch was a little different, but for me, my employer has enough technology that I just ended up working from home through COVID, so I didn't really have a whole lot of extra free time, unfortunately. But there wasn't the commute in the morning, there wasn't the digging out the professional outfit and getting it ironed and ready to, go to work, and the packing of lunch. So there was definitely a lot of time saved, and I
Yeah,
really just enjoyed that time to start to work through some projects, to start to dream about my YouTube channel, to take a little bit more time for myself.
yeah, that and it was funny because, like, for me, the commute to work was 20 to 30 minutes one way, and it's like all of a sudden I got that back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I mean, being retired. I mean, I worked the last 2 years of my career, 2.5 years of my career. I worked from home, but that was well before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, all of a sudden you gain 30 minutes, so an
That
hour
makes a
every day. I can do
big
something else. Yeah.
makes a big difference. Absolutely. I think too
Mhm.
that here in Canberra, we were quite lucky compared to others around the world with the pandemic. We had two short periods of lockdown, and that's it. Melbourne was south of here was a whole different story. They were locked down for months. It's felt like we had about 3 or 4, maybe 6 weeks right at the beginning of the pandemic, like lots of people, and then we had another 8 or 9 week period in 2021, and that was it. We were really quite lucky. We could go out and go to the grocery store. We could make a booking at a restaurant and go for dinner. We could do a lot of things through what that other people couldn't do through the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I know here when it came to the pandemic, I mean, my husband and I weren't going anywhere. Just okay, we'll stay at home. I was quite happy to stay at home and be in my sewing room.
Yeah, yeah, you've got Mount Scrapmore to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I got like tons of fabric here. Yeah, I can sit, and I kind of self entertain, and he's a self entertainer, so yeah, we didn't go anywhere really. I mean, we got our groceries. I don't remember how long our lockdowns were, but being locked down and just staying home after a
Yeah,
while, there's really no difference,
yeah, yeah,
you know. We already had a Zoom account, so it was kind of like we were gathering electronically,
yeah.
and being the first Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners that we had over Zoom, my family put, we're gonna play games, we're gonna eat supper together on Zoom, we're gonna sing songs. Really? Yes, we're singing, we're doing this,
Yes,
we're
we're
having
gonna make it
games,
work.
we're going to make it work, we're gonna have fun. And it was they were in well, you had to do something,
You had
right?
to
You
make
just
do.
had
Yeah,
to, you couldn't, you had to have something to look forward to, right? So
yeah, yeah,
now everybody loves having stories. And I want to hear either your happy story or your sad story about quilting. Do you have like particularly happy one or particularly sad one, or
yeah, yeah. That's a good question. I think that first memory is a happy one of playing underneath the quilts as my mom and the ladies in the community were working on them. I That's a very strong and very fond memory. Honestly, I make so many quilts and I give them away, and the joy of giving a quilt to someone is absolutely incomparable.
yeah?
It feels great, and you know that they appreciate it. We went to My husband works for the Canadian High Commission here in Australia, and we went to a Canadian, was it Thanksgiving or no, it was a Canada Day celebration in July, which is the dead of winter here in Australia. So it was quite cold.
Yeah.
So we went to one of Jason's colleagues' house, and I brought a table runner as a gift, as a hostess. Thanks for hosting us. Thanks for putting this whole party together. And oh my gosh, she was so funny. She knows that I'm a quilter. She's seen some of my work, and this is the first piece that she had been given. So I gave it to her, and this is probably quite rude, but she said, "I'm going to Scotch guard crap out of this. And that was her response. That was her response. Not, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Thank you. Welcome. No, no, no. I'm going to Scotch guard the crap out of this. And I said, Bobby, you can put it in the laundry machine. You can put it in the washer. You can put it in the dryer. It'll be fine.
I know. We had our first gathering after the pandemic. I had hand sewn and hand quilted a little poinsettia table runner, right? We had it on our YouTube channel. But I mean, I was still like the last day or two before I was okay. I'm finally getting it all quilted. It's all done now. I can throw it down on the table. And the first thing the kids said, "What if we spill cranberries on it?" They said it's brown, it's dark red, and dark green.
Fine.
You're really gonna see that stain? It's not gonna happen. It's not. It's fine.
It'll just be a
Yeah,
scratch
it's
and
all
sniff
good.
spot. And you can flip it over. It'll be fine.
I don't know. So, Michelle, every quilter dreams of doing a Dear Jane or
Yeah.
some people now have nicknamed it Damn Jane because it's impossible to finish, and it's all these tiny little pieces. And what is the hardest quilt you've ever worked on? What was the name of it?
The hardest quilt I've ever done
Yeah.
is my apple core quilt. It's scrappy. It's made with the Missouri Star quilt apple core template. And you know what? I was so intimidated. I thought I will, okay, here's the first two, right? You take the one with the curve and you sew it. And I thought, oh, okay, that's not so bad. And so I made hundreds of pairs of twos. I thought, okay, now it's time to make them into foursies. That's that's where it got really hard. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what have I gotten into? And it was absolutely the hardest quilt ever. Thankfully, it's all scrappy. I actually put it in one of my scrappy trunk shows on my channel, so you can
Mm-hmm.
go back to that video and take a look at it. It was by far the hardest quilt I've ever made. I doubt I will ever make it again. I have since done a drunkard's path, which is a curved block, and that
Yeah.
I like. That's a big enough curve, and there's not that many of them, and it finishes into a square block that can get sewn to others. So I'm over my trauma of curved seams, but I don't know that I'll ever go back to an apple core.
I had when we did curve boot camp on my channel, I got like, why are you making this so hard? Because I'm trying to improve your skills. I mean, I know how to sew curves, but yeah, like an apple core, because most people you're taught to line it up a certain way. Well, when you sew them twos into fours, you sew basically to the middle, and then you got to flip it over,
Right. It's, yeah, that S curve. Yep. Yep.
and it's like,
Yep.
and the smaller the curve, the harder it is to sew.
Yep.
But you
Yep.
have to start somewhere,
Yeah, but I
right?
started with the apple. I should have started with the drunkard's path and not with the apple core.
Well, we we like I say, it's the landscape ones. Those are like gentle S curves. I mean,
Yep.
those are so, people once they understand, okay, it's just a gentle curve, just sew it.
I
Just
feel like I could do that. Yeah. 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 But
yeah, but
tiny 5 inch apple core. Yeah. No. So hard. And if you look, I mean, the photos, it looks great in the photos. I'm so grateful that the photos look good. But if you look up close, you can see a few little pleats here and there. And then I just sort of quilted over it and hope nobody would notice.
it quilts out. It quilts out.
Quilted out. That's exactly it. That's exactly.
And that's true, right? I put a quilt in for a hand quilting. I asked for it to be judged for hand quilting, and the woman who won the category, by the way, her quilting was exquisite. And I don't use that word very often, but when I looked at hers, I was like, oh my God. Like she, where the warp and the weave,
Yep.
two
Yep.
threads. That was
Wow.
the length of, like, so she was probably at that 21 stitches per inch or whatever quilting. Oh yeah, just like, oh my God. So here we are. I'm looking at hers. I'm looking at my. Oh yeah, no, I probably, they probably go like, for God's sakes, woman, stop hand quilting. This looks like rubbish. They actually were very nice and they were very kind, and they said I needed more quilting, right? Because some of the areas were puffier.
Yeah, right.
And that's true. But yeah, like once you start quilting all of that in, it does manage to quilt out, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yep.
works.
Yep.
But yeah,
21
I know.
stitches in an inch. That's astonishing. My grandmother told me that the small betweens to do the hand quilting, she said I should try and get 7 stitches on the needle. 21. Oh my God.
I know. I'm like, oh my lord. There's so many methods now on hand quilting, and basically, my mother used a great big hoop, quilter's hoop.
Yep.
I can't imagine what that would have been like from the center of the quilt trying to hold on to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it's just, yeah, they understood sewing a little bit differently than we did. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now, what is your favorite part of the quilting?
Favorite part. That's easy. I love, 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 love piecing, and I love machine quilting. I quilt all my own quilts, and I have a
Yeah,
great Janome. I don't know if you can sort of see it just in the corner behind me over there. Well, anyway,
yeah,
it's over there. I have a Janome TL210Q. It's that borderline between a domestic and an industrial machine. It's still a
right.
domestic machine, but it's got a lot of power, and I love machine quilting on it. It's great, and it's a ton of fun.
Now, do you do the free motion quilting or do you do, yeah?
Almost always free motion. I do some stitch in the ditch and things, but almost all
Yeah.
just free motion. And I keep my designs are really simple. I'm no Angela Walters with all the fancy designs and things. I keep it really simple, but I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I decided now too, because I've seen some of my charity quilts I've given to my community person. I just make the quilt top, she takes it to
Yeah,
a long loomer.
yeah,
Wow, some of those quilts, like Joy Hansen was doing some of my quilts. Beautiful job. Oh my goodness. Like
yeah.
just
The
gorgeous.
results that a long arm can produce are astonishing, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally I can do it. I enjoy doing it, so
Yeah.
I like to machine quilt my quilts.
I have on my Singer 301A,
Yeah.
this one here. I have made up to a king size.
Wow.
Yeah. It and doing free motion quilting on it too,
Good
right?
for
I
you.
also do like the straight line quilting and stitch in the ditch and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
eco quilting and stuff, but I prefer point to point, like where you do,
Yeah.
a little design. If it's shaped like this, you do a little design, and or if it's, this color, you do this motif. If it's that color, you do that motif, kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just doing, then you're only worrying about
Little
this,
areas
right? So yeah,
makes it manageable. Yeah.
yeah, more manageable. What's your least favorite part? The part that we all,
The spray basting. Oh, it's a necessary step. It has to be done. And it's actually this week's video from my channel. But oh man. I
and you hate spray basting because it just makes a mess everywhere,
It
or
makes a mess. It's a pain in the neck, but it has to be done. I've tried, and I know lots of people really don't like the aerosol and the chemical, and I get that. I have tried lots of other things. I don't have the patience to hand base with big stitches. I've tried
thread? Yeah,
safety
thread base.
pins.
Yeah,
It just doesn't get it as flat as I want it to be. And I just find the spray base makes it work beautifully. And it's just such a pain in the neck. Jason and I, we're lucky we have an unfinished basement parking area in the townhouse complex we live in. So we go downstairs and do it there. So I'm not really worried about cleanup. It's just a bit of spray based on the raw concrete floor, but we sweep the floor. But it's just, I'm so grateful that I have Jason to help me because I can do it myself, but that's also a pain in the neck. But just, I don't know, going down there and it's dark and it's cold and taping it all up and spraying. It's just, yeah.
I know. Yeah, I pin based or I
Okay.
thread based. I have yet to try basting.
Oh, we're on opposite sides of that coin. All right.
Yeah, because pin basting for me, Doesn't take long. And you
Yeah,
get
okay.
queen size in no time. But I mean, I'm also pin basting like this width. So my
Right.
measuring tape is there, right? So I'm,
Yep.
kind of like, okay. And I've got lots of pins, and it's not hard, but
Okay. And you feel like you can
yeah.
get it nice and flat and smooth?
And I can reuse the pins.
Yep.
Spray basting, you pay how much for a bottle? And it's like, how much
Yeah.
was that?
Yeah.
How many pins could I have bought with that?
Yep. Yep.
I
I
know.
was I was in Canada recently and my mom bought a can of spray base so that we could do some of her projects for her. And it was a lot. It was like $30 for the can, which stunned me because I buy cans here from an online craft shop here in Australia that are only $7 or $8, and I get 3 quilts out of it. So maybe the cost of fabric is through the roof, but spray based is a great deal here.
Well, there's people that make at school time, like when it's back to school season here in Canada, they'll go buy the big jug of Elmer's school glue and they'll dilute it 3 to 1, like
Yep.
1 part Elmer's and then 2 parts water, and they'll use that as a spray base.
Have you tried it?
No,
I've never tried it. You know what? I should try it for a table runner or something. I have seen one
yeah,
video on YouTube, but yeah, I've not tried it.
but that with the spray basting like that, I mean, you're still buying a big thing of Elmer's school glue, but it washes out.
Exactly. The spray
You
based
know.
I use is water soluble. It will wash out when the quilt gets washed.
Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, to each their own, right? It something a little less aerosol can would be
I
wonderful,
know.
and I should try it. But
I
sometimes when you
know.
find what works, it's easier just to stick with it.
I know. Yeah. It's well, what's ever working for you. I mean, I tell people you do you. If
Exactly.
your budget is pins or thread basting and you
Yeah.
can't afford, yeah, just use your pins, right?
Yep.
Because I mean that's it's yet another expense for me, right? But
Yep.
now, now we come to the tips.
Oh, tips. Okay.
Tips, or I don't know if we should do the tips or the. What's your 3 most favorite quilting tools?
My sewing machine, number one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can't live without it. Um, Other sewing tools. I should have thought of this because I have 2 videos on my channel. One is the expensive tools, and one are the inexpensive tools. So I use a bone folder a lot. I'm going to grab it and show you. It's just this, and I had it originally for paper crafting, and I think it's legitimately a bone. I think it's actually made out of cattle bone, but you can get them in plastic as well. And it's just a great thing to, if I'm looking to like hand press a seam, or
Yes.
sometimes I use it like a Hera marker. So I'll like draw a line with it and I can just see that line to get under the machine without needing a pencil or to iron something or to
Yeah.
poke out corners. So I use this a lot for different things in the sewing room.
Oh wow.
Wouldn't be able to live without the machine, obviously. I think a rotary cutter is too obvious because, rotary cutter and ruler, I don't think we would do our thing without those
I
anymore.
don't know. I started quilting. When I started quilting, it was scissors and cardboard.
And cereal boxes cut up into patterns, into
My
templates.
mother would take anytime we went out and bought pantyhose, the
Yeah.
pantyhose cardboard.
Yep.
She'd
Yep.
grab the bag and pull out the pantyhose, throw it at you, and then take the cardboard. And it was like,
That's
"Gee, thanks,
great.
mom."
I have a little I have a little statue of the cardboard that comes inside fat quarters, and I use that as my little scratch pads to do the math and figure things out. I have a little
I
statue
know,
of it
yeah.
right here.
I know that. Yeah, I have a little scratch pad of loose paper and junk. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so your bone tool,
My
your
bone
sewing
folder, the
machine.
machine. I don't know what else to say, Brenda. Like, you need good sewing scissors, you need a rotary cutter. I do love my bobbin keeper. That keeps things much neater in the sewing room. It's my little place to,
Oh yes, I even have a purple one like you.
yeah, I love this so that the bobbins aren't rolling all over the place and they're right there next to my machine.
You know what I did with mine? You're gonna see I'm a Star Trek geek right away.
Ah, love it.
But yeah, so I've got my
Yep,
bobbins
there
in
you
there. Well, I've
go.
got, yeah, and then I just put a cup in there. Now everything's within reach. and it's not slipping and sliding because the bobbin holder keeps it in place.
Yep, yep. I normally have one of my cones of thread sitting in the middle. Yep. I
Yeah, I
can
know.
relate.
It's just like it's just such a cool, yeah, the bobbin holder thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's underrated, I think.
absolutely.
We forget it's there, right?
Yep.
So
Because before that, they would sit in a little caddy next to my machine or whatever, but then the threads would start to get unraveled. And yeah, love the bobbin.
yeah, yeah, the bob, yeah, because I normally I have lots of bobbins wound, but I'm getting right down to like, oh, you gotta sit down and wind some bobbins here.
Yep.
Okay,
And then the last
what
one,
are
actually, let me show you this. This is my nasty, dirty, grotty pipe cleaner.
oh,
Incredibly valuable to keep my sewing machine in tip top shape. Ah, that's good.
this is a makeup brush that I had forever that was never used for makeup.
Yep.
And every once it gets further, and it was a blush brush, and every once in a while it gets further and further spread out, and all the junk collects in here, and you put it underwater, it's like runs gray for like I don't know how long.
Yeah, this used to be a white pipe.
And these are real, people don't realize, like every bobbin I change I sweep out.
Yeah, yeah,
They don't
absolutely.
realize how much crap gets in there,
Yep,
and all of a sudden my machine will be making thunking noises, and it's the felt that builds up
yep,
underneath the plate, and it's like, oh
yep, yep.
yeah,
Clean your machine.
clean your machine. Okay, now for a beginning quilter, what are your 3 best tips to go play or to
Best
go
tips.
give her? What would those tips be?
Number one, just do it. You're not going to get better until you try.
Yep,
Jenny Don't always says 1 hour sewing today makes you 1 hour better tomorrow.
yep,
And I just think that's so true. So just do it. I think to just pick something simple. And some people might say, oh, well, I can't tell what's simple and what's difficult. You know what? The quilt behind Brenda, that's difficult. Something that's just some big blocks, that's simple. Pick something simple and just do it. And then I think the third is persist. It's kind of the same message, I guess, but finish something. Don't start a ton of different things. Don't start something and give up. Don't start something new and give up. Persist. Keep doing it, just do it and finish. And then I guess it's less of a tip, but if you get stuck, find someone to help. There's quilt guilds all over
yep,
the place. There's YouTube everywhere. Send Brenda an email, send me an email. Happy
yep.
to help people get to the end of their project.
Yeah, that finishing your what you start. When I would take students in, right, and we would, before the pandemic, they we if they wanted to learn how to quilt, the first thing we would teach them is a jelly roll race,
Yep.
because I know that sounds really a jelly roll race. You go out and you buy 42 strips of fabric. They're all coordinated. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Just you
They're
bring
going to
them
look good together.
here, and
Yep.
we'll show you how to sew them together like this.
Yep.
So you know how to do binding now, because you know how to do that binding fold over.
Yep.
And then you work on your 1/4 inch seam. For that
Over and
first
over and
seam
over
is
and
like
over again.
forever and
Yep.
ever and ever. So you muscle memory, learn your
Yep.
muscle memory on that 1/4 inch seam. And then you finish the quilting by doing the quilting. You do stitch in the ditch, which is simple, and
Yep.
then do your binding. And if I could get them to the binding and get it finished for them, they went off and did their next quilt.
Yeah. There you go. That's
But if
brilliant.
we couldn't get them to finish
Yep.
that first project, because whatever, life happens, kind of thing, and then they come back like months later, well, I don't even know where it is,
Yeah.
you have to go find it and bring it, well, can I start something new? No, you gotta
No,
finish the
finish
first
it.
one.
Good for you.
Finish
Yeah.
the first
Love
one.
that. Love
Yeah.
that.
The other thing too, I used to give so many discussions on color. People get paralyzed by color.
Yeah.
They just freeze up, when it's okay, go pick the colors of your quilt.
Yeah.
And you could see the panic, and it was just like, no, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Color,
I
yeah.
think when we first started quilting, pre-cuts weren't really a thing. I don't really
No.
know how long they've been around, but it's only been a few, 10, 15 years maybe that pre-cuts have been a thing. And I think for a beginner, they're a great place to start because you know that things will match. You know that everything
Yeah.
will coordinate and that there'll be lights, darks, and medium. You know that it will work. So I think
Yeah.
pre-cuts are great for that. And then I think it comes down to practice. I've developed my own approach to color over the years. I've made some mistakes. I have a
Yeah.
video on some of my mistakes, and some of the biggest mistakes are where the color choice just wasn't right. The contrast wasn't strong enough. That's
Yep.
primarily my big issue. But you learn those things. And the quilts that I
Oh yeah.
finished that I consider mistakes, we still use them. They're still fine. They could
Oh
have been
yeah.
better with different fabric, but finished is better than perfect. Nobody can snuggle underneath a quilt top or a partially finished quilt top or a bunch of jelly roll strips. But
Yeah.
loads of people would love to snuggle under an imperfectly color selected finished project.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and the next favorite one I like to give is go play in somebody else's scrap box because they're buying fabric that you would never consider buying.
yes, love
Now
that.
make them, they try and put like a light, medium, and dark together out of that and try and work in there. And all of a sudden you start seeing how things kind of go together, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, and that you learn lots there.
yeah.
Because
And
you're
you learn
like
that
you
light,
say,
medium, and dark is all relative. If you're working with just whites and creams and neutrals, light, medium, and dark is relative. Light,
yeah,
dark in one quilt might be the lightest light in another quilt.
yeah, that's right. That's very true. Well, it's like I say, this here behind is mediums, brights,
Yeah,
and black,
and black.
right?
Yeah,
So you can't go too dark like on your reds. If you go too dark, it starts to get, like
it
it
blends
blues.
into the black and you can't see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's a
And
beautiful
it's
piece.
hard sometimes, because we tend to use the blacks or the darks and the lights first, and then we're like,
Yes,
it's all
yes.
medium.
That's where
So
the art of contrast becomes really important because dark and light is easy. Medium is a whole other ball game.
yeah. Okay, what are your last words of encouragement?
Last words. Keep it fun. This is about playtime. This is about doing something for most of us, I think. Most of us have knowledge based jobs. We're on computers, we're using our brains, we're thinking. Quilting, you still use your brain when you're thinking, but it's tactile. It's an old fashioned skill that uses your hands, uses different parts of your brain. I think have fun with it. There are no rules, there's no quilting police. Make what you want. If it doesn't turn out to be a blanket or a quilt, then call it fiber art, and still just have fun with it. If it sticks out all over the place and you've got to hang it on the wall, then it's art. And if you get to the very end and it's a blanket or a table runner, then it's a quilt. But have fun with it. Use it as a hobby, use it as an interest, use it as a mental health strategy. Just have fun, and there's so many things you can do. You can be the most traditional traditionalist, you can be the most ultra modern modernist, you can waffle in between. I think there's something for everyone in quilting.
Oh yeah, and everybody has a voice. And there it's not your voice isn't more important than my voice, and my voice isn't more important than the next guy's. Like we
Yeah,
all have a voice, and there's
absolutely.
room for all the voices.
And you've done an amazing job with that, Brenda, with your sew alongs, with your Facebook groups. You've done an amazing job of bringing that community and giving people an opportunity to have their voice heard. So well done.
Yeah, it was kind of a different approach. Okay, yeah, we had set up a Facebook group, but um, do we just want a group or do we want a community? Do we want to be sharing?
Yeah.
Do we want that kind of anyways, yeah, it's hard to kind of so do you want to see my sneak peek of this?
Yeah.
So this is a 6-inch hexie, 6-inch finished hexie. And
Okay.
this quilt is done by Rose. Yes, it looks hard. It's not. It's not.
Okay. Do you do it
This
as half hexies? Look.
this is the 12-inch version, and they're going to
Oh,
come together, right? So, and here is a lesson in color. You see the blues?
Yep.
They're not quite the same. Nobody's gonna notice in your
Nobody's going to notice. It'll look intentional. It's a design choice, Brenda. It's a design choice.
So I decided to blow this one up to 200%, and I'm having more fun with it than I did when I made this one.
I can imagine. It's going to be stunning. Absolutely stunning. I love it. Love it.
Well, and of course, my husband's like, "It's huge. Why would you make that huge?" I said, "It's going
Why
to be
wouldn't
so."
you?
Why not? You know, like
Exactly.
you can do modern quilts, dude. You know, and he's like, "Yeah, okay." So, anyways, this block that I just showed you is this one right here.
Okay.
So yeah,
Fabulous. You know what? You put 3 or 4 of those on a solid background. Stunning. Stunning.
yeah, and with these, the beauty of these is you don't have to have all the yellow meeting. You
Yeah.
can, there's 3 different ways you can put this block together because it's got 3 sides, right? And you only sew 3 together and the other 3 together, and
Yeah.
then you line them up, right?
The
Because
way
you
that you
sew
deal
in
with
row,
hexes. Yeah, when you're rows.
much
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
You don't have any Y seams or none of that nonsense. It's
Love
just,
it. Love it. Love it. I'll show you a
So
little bit
anyways,
what I'm working on. I've got a faux log cabin going on here. That's going to be a new video and
cathedral
pattern on my
window is
website
gorgeous. Isn't
when I
that
get it done.
beautiful?
It started with some leftover K facet fabrics. I had a couple of 2-inch, about 22-inch strips from a fat quarter bundle, and they were leftovers, and I wanted to do something with them. And then I ended up pulling out every orange and pink and yellow fabric in my collection to turn it into some cathedral windows.
Yeah, it's just that is gorgeous. That I love that what was it, one of the ladies there that Sarah Ragland from Quilting for the Soul, or yeah, she did one by hand, and hers was just like wow.
Wow. Well, this was supposed to be easy cathedral windows. I think I'm going to rename it to false or faux cathedral windows because I think we've gone beyond easy.
Yeah,
See
they're
how it ends up.
deceiving, aren't they? They're like, oh my goodness.
And you know
Like,
what? It was the little cathedral windows weren't so hard to make these little units. It was the sewing them together part when I came up with the brilliant, not so brilliant plan to put the little ones in between to sew them all together. I realized I couldn't make 4Zs or 2Zs or 4Zs. I had to lay out everything because every row and every block needed to know exactly what was going. Oh, anyway, it's been an adventure.
yeah, one of the ladies there in our group, she posted a picture that just every time she makes these quilts, it just like my jaw drops. And it's courthouse steps, but every courthouse, so it looks like all the lines are going this way, and then the other lines are going this way, and that
Yeah.
you know, and basically it's a courthouse step, but it's very cool, color coordinated, so she knows exactly what block is going to go beside it, and she goes to
Yes.
that block, and then she puts it up, and I'm like, it is just gorgeous when she's done, but it's like the
Wow.
planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very deceiving because you're sitting there. How did she put that together? Well, it's just the courthouse steps, right? But
The
yeah,
block itself isn't complex, but the design is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
putting it up on a design wall. I haven't got room in my sewing room for a design wall, so I'm most
I
of
use
the
the
time I'm
floor in
framing it.
here, which yeah, drives me nuts sometimes.
Well, anyways, we should get wrap this up.
We should.
Michelle, it has been just awesome talking with you today. I'm sorry, life here has been just busy. We never got to this sooner, but
This has been a ton
hopefully,
of fun.
oh yes. And I'm counting you as yet another blessing for somebody that I have met on this crazy YouTube adventure that I've been on. So I
Thank
hope
you,
that
Brenda.
yeah, this interview, you know, it's funny how these interviews, they either help you and oh, I know that, yeah, I can relate to that, yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
or they're kind of like, oh, I didn't know she was that way.
I hope I fall into the first and not the second.
Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, well, I'm gonna say goodbye from Conquering Mount Scrapmore in Canada,
And
and
bits and
Michelle.
pieces quilting here in Australia. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, bye guys. Have
Bye.
fun.